All right. I love how the music actually fits with that, that it just happens that those first few tracks take 10 minutes. So, thank you for the subscription. That's, of course, that's Kate. So, you know, thank you for supporting your own channel. Oh, crap. People are floating in. It's good to see all of you, honestly. And here, let me just clean this up. There we go. It's Christmas Eve here. It may be Christmas Day for some people who are watching, although it would probably be pretty early in the morning for them at this point. Aragorn is continuing the gift sub. Well done, Aragorn. Well done. Although, Aragorn, you're showing off your subscriber badge, but not your first badge, right? Like, you didn't lose your first badge, did you? You better not have. Oh, fuck! That is very kind of you, Aragorn. For the D10, because it's so cute. I mean, you do have the yellow D10. I think when you hit 6 months soon, you'll have a different color. But it's cool. You ate Aragorn's badge? I mean, that's fair. That's completely fair. Oh, there's a hype train. The hype train is occurring right now. We're already at level 3. All right, great. Yeah. So, no why. What we're here to do today, even more. Even more. And the train continues. And we're just, okay, so that's how we're gonna start this, is just a whole bunch of people coming in to gloriously support the channel, which is very appreciated. Yeah, apparently clinic hours are canceled, and it's just holiday hype for everybody. That's true. We're getting close to 6 months here. I don't think we're quite there yet. We're almost at 6 months, but not quite yet. I know we've got Lo in here as well. Lo's always somebody that we're happy to see. Lemire Grubermensch is here. Saren Zero, Weirdness. Got a few people in here, and of course Aragorn. And all of the players are currently sitting in chat because they want the insider knowledge for all of this. So we will have to oblige if we can. What are we doing today? We are creating some NPCs. Now, depending on what people want to see, we might go for the mechanics of creating the NPCs. We have a room for quick characters in the Chronicle alongside normal characters or battle groups. We're not really going to deal with battle groups here. As you can see, we have Testicles battle group here. For some reason, I name everything starting with test, and then that happens. Yeah, we don't actually want to have that as a battle group here, and we have Testy here as a quick character. So we do have the best Assassin's Creed Odyssey character, absolutely. A battle group of 2, very much so, Roger, very much so. So we could be doing mechanically, or the other thing that we have is we have the ability to start creating characters from a more flavor perspective and putting them directly into the wiki so that people will already know and be able to find them over here. So we have the option of doing one or the other. I'm honestly good with both of them, but essentially let's look at what our goals are first. when we're creating a roster, which is what I call the sort of characters that are in and around that are meant to be recurring. The roster is meant to create a world in which the players can dive in and interact. I will say that no matter what, right off the bat, nothing I write here could survive. Obviously, when you start playing an NPC, they are just like a PC in that they may start going in directions that you're not quite aware of when you first start drafting them up. And that's okay. That's totally fine that a character doesn't adhere to your original plans. In fact, that flexibility is what helps give a world a lot more life and makes the players feel like they've got more of an effect on the world. That you're not just rigidly adhering to what you have previously determined in the past. So it's cast and call. That's fair. Art by thirsty artist, maybe? I mean, maybe. So that's kind of what we've got going on right here is the idea that we want to create NPCs that are memorable, NPCs that will help focus and emphasize the story onto the PCs, because we want to make sure that they feel like the protagonists, and also to create a bed so that when we continue playing the game, we've got enough flexibility that we can make some changes. Now, there's a couple of things that I'm obviously not going to do. Anything secret, I'm not putting on stream right now. And they definitely won't make it onto the wiki right away. It's generally not in your best interest. Thank you, Lo. Lo pushes that hype train up to level 5. Hypey. That's always something that's kind of like when the hype thing rolls across, it says hypey instead of hype. So level 4 is complete. And now that just means cooler things for cooler people. Ripping your shirt Hulk Hogan style. Why don't you rip your shirt Low style? That's what I want to see. I don't like creating obvious antagonists, or rather I should say obvious villains right away. I prefer to let characters interact with somebody and make their own decisions as to whether somebody is a villain or not, even if that's what they're intended to be, because you don't know how your players are going to come out. One of the things that I'll point out is that in the campaign that we've got going on right now, funnily enough, full party is still here, although there are 10 players in full party, which is a little strange, but here we have our 3 characters that we've got going on here. Hey, Kung Fu Fenris, it's good to see you. Hopefully you're feeling better. I mean, yeah, 5 paths running on empty. But one thing that I'll point out is that if we look at these characters, I mean, I can also make notes, but if we look at these characters, and specifically we look at their intimacies, none of them have placed intimacies specifically detailing their thoughts and feelings about the realm or about the Immaculate Order, which means that we don't necessarily have them tied to supporting or secretly wanting to work against the realm. Let's just make sure, while I've got that here. My house is close-minded, but loyalty to House Liddell and opportunity of House of Bells. So they have ties to the House of Bells, but not necessarily ties to the realm or to the dynasty or to the Immaculate Order. Secrets, damn it. Well, it's just written secret. Because we figured out that, of course, secret, because we found out that there is a workaround in order to see secrets at the moment, and we're waiting for that to be fixed before we actually start putting secrets into the thing. Secrets, damn it. There it is. Secrete. And because of that, I don't necessarily want to say, well, obviously these characters are going to be fighting the tyranny of the realm from within, because I don't know that that's necessarily how they're going to feel. Nor do I want to assume that they will destroy anathema left and right, because I don't know if that's necessarily how they feel. So in that case, I want to create characters to flesh out the world, but without necessarily making judgment calls one way or the other just yet. Now I can internally start feeling out where I want to take this chronicle in terms of its emotional tone or in terms of its morality, but I can't force that. The players have not made any declarations on their own, and I haven't asked them because I don't want to force them to make those choices yet. So maybe they'll want to infiltrate Animal House, mostly for the keggers. Fair, but then they'll be on double secret probation. And who wants that? I have a strong relationship with my house / expectations, but the realm / immaculate order at large? Yep, these are all things to think about, but they're not necessarily things that you have to have focused on already. We can work on that as we move forward. So knowing that these are our 3 characters, then we also have our quick characters down here in our battle groups. I can create characters that'll add into the chronicle here that would be other ones. I'm actually not sure. I think if I add a character, oh, I have to select a character from outside. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about that. That is a level 4 hype train. Choo choo. But I can also add quick characters. I don't have, so I have Testy here. So if I put Testy in here, I'm not sure if players then can see this. In fact, there are players here. If you go into the chronicle, can you see the quick characters that I've put in here? Oh, I can hide from other players. Okay, well then I can do that. So that makes some sense, because I don't necessarily want to reveal everyone's stats right away. So let's take a look at, and I can remove from chronicle, I can pin to the menu, I can do lots of things here. Keen error and bug technique, something went wrong. Cannot read property hidden of undefined. Keen error and bug technique is what Lawcasting Atemi calls its bugs, which is just great. Okay. So we're actually not going to deal right now with their stats. What instead we're going to do is we're going to look at what we're looking for to flesh out the universe here. So if we look at ExalTwitch Academy on our wiki, which we've already started fleshing out, that's thanks to Kate, but also the participation of others, although right now it looks like it's Kate. So we have the ability to show off our characters. So we have the 3 PCs here, which we can see. We've now changed over to fandom because it's going to be much easier for us to make those edits. It's also more stable than our current Wikidot, which we're not certain is going to survive. But we have our PCs here, and we have just a little bit of information there. But we have room for classmates, professors, other NPCs. We also have ways that we can put in locations, episode summaries, although we don't have any episodes yet, obviously, because it hasn't started. And there's a section for fan art, so we have places like visual art, fan writing, or fan students that are non-canon. I know that some people have already started creating their characters, their fan students, and they can be put into the wiki as well. So, what do we want in terms of NPCs? We already know that these 3 are going to be placed together in a fang in the House of Bells. And a fang, for what it's worth, I'll just call it up here. Come on. So a fang is a division of people in an army, in a realm. Legion, for instance, which is about like 5 people for the House of Bells, and for for that means that we have a choice. Do we want to have our 3 PCs have the two additional NPCs to fill out their fang, or do we want to force them into dealing with a smaller fang and then recruit others? So I was thinking about this. One of the things that we do know when we're starting the campaign is that the 3 PCs are aware of each other. They have met each other, but they're not good friends of each other yet. They're being put into this fang right off the bat. And that's something that I want to let them kind of grow into. So, what happened to their last fangs? So I do know what happened to their last fangs. And I also know that this is something that this is sort of like the first beginning of their, of the plot that we're going to get into, is why these 3 have been put together. Which means that, I guess this is an exclusive first look at this. I am not creating NPCs to instantly go into their fang. They will actually have to start as a fang of 3 as opposed to a fang of 5. And they will get the opportunity potentially to recruit others into their fang, but I will sentence for a crime they did not commit to the A-team. You're just too pretty to be in our fang. You need to go in your own. So, in fact, all of them are quite pretty. Their appearances are 4, 5, and 4. So, you know, they're already the pretty fang. The haunted fang bunk. Ooh, like the haunted barracks. Because I don't want to force them into dealing with NPCs, because I'm not necessarily sure which ones they'll react to well. And I also want them to focus on getting to know each other first, because that's kind of important. I want them to feel like a group. If they don't get an opportunity to start learning their own interpersonal dynamic right away, then you run the risk of having them like NPCs more than each other. And I don't necessarily mean like their characters like them, I mean the players. And I have to make sure that the focus of the game is on the PCs. They have to come first. I do not want the PCs to start, the players to start growing attached to NPCs and their stories before figuring out their own interpersonal dynamic. So, hotly crew. Oh dear. So, as a result, we're not actually going to create characters instantly for them. But it does mean that we have to create characters that surround them. And one of the things that we definitely need to do is we need to figure out authority figures for them. Now, these are characters that are students in the world itself, and while other students surrounding them are also going to be important, we want to make sure that we have somebody who we can be a bit directive with them. While in some games, player characters are free to do whatever they want, that it's a total sandbox, we've kind of already assumed that in this game, the conceit is that they are students, and therefore we want to make sure that we have the ability to maneuver them when necessary in order to keep things going. Obviously, the players aren't going to necessarily know exactly how life at the House of Bells is going to work, and that means that we have to be the ones to fill that gap. And if we are filling that gap, hey, let's see. Jean-Lahas? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. You'll have to let me know. Because we don't necessarily know how they're going to fit in, or they don't necessarily know, we have to create that for them. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to create an authority figure for this. I don't know if we want to go all the way up to like the headmaster of the House of Bells, so we're going to deal with a professor who is dealing with them right now. Welcome from Brazil. We do have a couple of other South Americans who frequent the channel, so it's good to see you. Anyway, whether or not there are other South Americans, but the coughs are rough, eh? Yeah, I do not want to be in your shoes, I'm afraid. So, so this is what we're going to need to do. We're going to create a professor. Now, we already have an example sheet of what a professor would look like here. We can create one, though. So we're going to do that. And hey, this is going to be a tutorial on how to create a page here for the RPGClinic wiki if you want to. So the first thing is that we need a name for our professor here. And remember that we're not dealing with a headmaster. This is going to be somebody who is overseeing their barracks, as it were. So we're looking at somebody who is kind of one part RA, one part professor, somebody who the characters will have to trust, at least at first, to get them to where they need to go. So let's see if we can come up with a name here. We do know that this is going to be a Dragon-Blooded character, and we also know that the character has to, at least initially, be someone who they'll at least listen to, if not necessarily, they don't necessarily have to respect this person. Maybe they will, but we do want to make sure that they listen to this person. So, how can we fill this out? First off, we do know that for a Dragon-Blooded character, they also have to have an aspect, and we know that this character will be at least somewhat seasoned. So if we were creating this as a quick character, we can do this at the same time. So let's create a new one. They always ask for the name first, which I hate because, of course, names are one of those things that I absolutely detest when it comes to dealing with these things. I tend to want to find a name gradually as things move on. But we are going to just straight up create this character, and this character is going to be named let's go for Juin. So obviously we can change the names later on, but we're going to start with that. So we're going to say this is Juin, and therefore we're also going to insert an info box here, and we do have ExalTwitch Academy character. It's right there, so we can throw that in. Not Juana Man. It can't always be renamed. So, because we have the template for this, because this is, of course, the most important thing for certain players of mine, we do have to define their appearance. We immediately want to make sure that if we all three of my PCs have chosen high appearances, which means that if we want to also pick somebody with a high appearance, then we're challenging that. People generally choose high stats because they want to feel special in that realm. It's very disappointing if when you create a character and you're like, I want this character to have very high, let's say, intelligence and very high appearance, and then every other NPC that they encounter also has high intelligence and high appearance. It makes you feel less special. So at least from the start, let's make sure that we don't instantly start devaluing them. But at the same time, this is a Dragon-Blooded character. Dragon-Blooded characters are more likely to have higher stats, so we're just going to throw a 3 in appearance right away. Exalt type, this is a Dragon-Blood, and we're going to need an aspect. Because this one is going to be somebody who's a bit of a caretaker, we're going to make this a wood aspect. Dragon-Blooded character right away. Occupation. Now, what we're going to need for this one, this is sort of like, this person isn't necessarily going to be only a teacher or a professor. This is also somebody who's going to be overseeing the barracks. So we're going to call this person an overseer right now. We can change this, obviously. We don't want to have to worry about this. Pronouns. Juin to me sounds like a feminine name. We don't necessarily have to have that abide, but we are going to make this person she, her. And title 1, I'm not actually sure what it is, so we're just not going to worry about it right now. So we're going to hit apply, and then immediately we're going to have here the information filled out here. Now, one thing that I should probably add is I'm going to call this, let's see if I put, is that going to refresh? No. All right, it's one thing, like I also literally just found out about this right away. We'll see if we can put this under title 1. Interesting. So if I put something in title 1, does it actually make a difference? No. No, it just changes the title of the whole info box. Which we don't want. The title 1 is somebody who we want that to specifically be there. So let's see. Okay, so caption 1 doesn't seem to do anything just yet, but that's fine. We can work out that there. I would like to be able to specifically mention underneath the name that this is an NPC. Just because even though most characters will end up being NPCs, it's just useful to see that. So, another blue row, yeah, right at the top. Now, we're in here. This is the quick character sort of setup that we have here. So we're just going to edit right away. We'll make this character publicly viewable for now because we're not necessarily going to need to worry about things in terms of other people seeing this. So, socials. We've already defined the appearance, so we'll throw that up there. Resolve and guile. So one thing that I will say is that a professor, we definitely want to have a professor who is a bit more strong-willed. We do not want somebody to be able to instantly sort of disrupt this professor right away. We want this one to be perhaps a bit more no-nonsense and somebody who can guide with a firm hand. So their guile also needs to be at least okay. Because not 32, because we don't want them to be so easily manipulated or forced. Capture 1 will probably caption a picture. Yeah, that's probable. We could fill out combat stats as well, merits, charms, sorcery. There isn't a place necessarily. We're going to say this is a wood aspect overseer of the barracks. So we already know what kind of character we want to have here. The other really important stuff that we want to make sure that we define for this, and this is part of the reason why Exalted is great for this sort of thing, is their principles are very important for this kind of thing. So that already is something that we have to focus on when we're creating the character. So does not use aura. So right now there is no aura, right? Because their anima isn't something that we have to worry about right now. We're going to say that this character is Essence 3. Somebody who is still an established Dragon-Blood, but not somebody who's overly powerful. Willpower definitely has to be higher. We want this character to be strong-willed. We also know that we could fill out their motes in case we ever get into combat with them. We're not going to focus on that right now. Same thing with their wounds and their health levels. Again, not something that we really have to focus on at this time, but we have the option to change these if we need to. So others for quick characters, senses are things like for them detecting things. We want this character to be actually pretty good at figuring out what's going on here. Feats of strength, not something that's incredibly important, and we're going to put their strength at 3. They are somebody who works at a military academy, so we're just going to make sure that she has at least some bearing of somebody who is physically capable. We may choose to up this later on, but remember that for a character that they're going to be seeing a lot of, we don't want this character to outshine a PC overwhelmingly. One of our PCs, Aresta, is somebody for whom strength is very important, and so we do not want to create instantly a character who is overshadowing Aresta at any point here. No one punches. No one punched the RA. Probably a good plan. So we need to figure out what this character cares about. In terms of socials, that means principles and ties. In Exalted, characters have principles and ties that are either minor, major, or defining. And these are statements or links that they have to persons, places, or things, or even concepts that help sort of define where their strengths and weaknesses are. It's actually both. They're double-edged swords. Because if you believe in something, that could help you, that could prevent other people from trying to manipulate you against them, but they can also hinder you because if they know what you care about, they can use that against you. So, let's go into it. One of the things that we want to make sure of is that this person, for the House of Bells, now normally I would be hiding all of these right away because I don't want the players to know what these principles are right now. But for this character, I'm okay with them knowing kind of right off the bat because they probably interacted with this character before, and I'm not going to put any secret intimacies in here as well. This character is going to be pretty much an open book right off the bat. This is just giving you an idea of how I would create an NPC for this as we are right now. So this person, we're going to make sure that this person is kind of has their whole life revolving around the House of Bells and their students. So I want to make sure that she has at least a major tie to the House of Bells, and we are going to say loyalty. So this is actually matches one of our PCs has, or I think all of our PCs have ties at least to the House of Bells, but this is a major tie, something that they really, really care about. We're also going to say House of Bells students, and we're going to call this guardianship, and this is a defining intimacy. So for Juin, this is an incredibly important part of her life, is keeping an eye on these students and helping to guide them. So we are we're looking at making sure that she will protect the students, but also it'll be hard to manipulate her against what she believes is in the students' best interests, because this is a defining intimacy of hers right here. We also need to make sure that Juin has a house. This is kind of an important part of being part of the realm, is what house you belong to. And I want to make sure that whichever house Juin is a part of, it's a house that isn't necessarily counter to the PCs, but I do not want there to be favoritism just yet for this character. So let's have a look. If we go into the great houses, I think I've already picked one that I like for this, and if I don't miss my guess, we're going to make this person, because we want this person to care quite a bit, we're going to make this person House Nellens. You're not allowed to cross your fingers and then say, dang it, unless you actually say what you want it to be. So your initial thought was Nemen. Ah, I see. Don't worry, there will be a Sinus house. I know I keep calling them Sinus, but I think we'll go with Sinus this time around. So, House Nellens, very specifically, is it's a controversial house, and this is something that I kind of want, because this person doesn't want to play house politics. This person cares about the students first and foremost. Sinus over here would have the best parties. I mean, perhaps. Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, there is no, as far as I can tell, there is no official pronunciation guide for any of the houses. So, Nellens. So we already know that. So we should probably figure out how how she feels about her house. So we're going to say House Nellens. Let's actually spell house properly. And we need to come up with how she feels about it. And I'm going to say that for House Nellens, she's going to have tolerance. And we're only going to make that a minor. Clearly, she tolerates being a part of this house, but she isn't necessarily terribly invested in this house. And that's something that we can figure out then for us. So we also need to add some principles for this character. We want to make sure that this character is also focused on making sure that things go well, but we want to make sure that there's already some, we want to introduce a little bit of conflict in here to keep this character interesting. So, those who are pushed learn to push back. We're going to say that this is a minor intimacy. But this is a principle, right? So this is something that this is sort of like a tenet that they believe in. Yeah, Aresta is House Cathak. So we have 2 Cathak, 1 Ladal. We want to make sure that this person is somebody who believes that that if you lean on your students, then they will learn to push back, which is something that she actually wants to encourage. She wants them to learn to develop a spine. Now, at the same time, she doesn't necessarily want them to always be rebellious, but I'm not sure this is actually the correct principle that I want. Not quite. This isn't quite what I mean. So let's try that again. Those who are pushed to the limit find themselves with new limits. Not quite there. So let's see. Those who are pushed to the limit. There, that's closer to what I'm looking for. You cannot exceed your limitations without being pushed beyond them. So, rules are for the obedience of fools and the guidance of the wise. It's an interesting one, but I'm not sure that fits this character just yet. So this is sort of, this is a better distillation of what I was looking for. Knowing that she's going to need to push these characters, to encourage them to step outside their comfort zones. That's something that we can already use to sort of generate some conflict and generate some spice, because this is a character that they're going to be interacting with more than once. The safety of the realm depends on the graduates of the House of Bells. This implies that she feels very strongly that that she is helping to support the realm itself by creating the best possible graduates. Does she have ego? If I shape the students, I shape the realm. I don't know if it's necessarily ego here. I think this is more, I think she actually has a bit more altruism in her. But we do definitely want to make sure that she isn't a perfect character. However, we've already said that she cares about the realm here, so let's make sure that we add that tie. So the realm loyalty, we're going to change this one up here, but the realm loyalty I think is a fairly important thing for her. So we're just going to leave that there, and then we're also going to have the Immaculate Faith, which I think she feels I think she's devoted to it, but not so much that it's overwhelming for other people. So that's just still going to be a minor intimacy. And she cares more about the school than she cares about the realm. So we'll keep that in a minor as well. So House of Bells, we're going to change this to home. And we'll leave that at a major intimacy here. So you cannot exceed your limitations without being pushed beyond them. Right now that's still a minor, and the safety of the realm depends on the graduates of the House of Bells. We're also going to leave that as a minor because she doesn't care as much about the realm as all that. It would be strange if we made this into a major. But knowing that she thinks pushing students is important, that's something that we can have here as well. What else can we add? Well, we definitely want to make sure that we have something in here to imply some kind of conflict that she can necessarily have with PC's interests. So here, Aragorn says, I think there's a valid argument for her to believe in the principle that the House of Bells is important to the safety of the realm, but not also have a tie to the realm. Like, I believe the work of the bells is important to the realm, but not necessarily that the realm is important to me. Yes, but we still definitely want to make sure that some of these people are, at the very least, supporting the realm. One thing that we have to make sure of, and this is something that I see GMs do, is that there's a temptation that you make a moral choice as to what is good and what is bad, and then you make your characters fall along those choices, and you define your characters as good or bad as a result. There is the realm itself, for a lot of people, especially if you start playing Exalted and you sympathize more with either Solars, Lunars, or to a certain extent Gold Faction Sidereals, you may not necessarily support the realm. You may think that the realm has become corrupt or is evil or is generally a poor influence on the world. And so then there is a temptation to make sure that people who support the realm are bad. And GMs believing, oh, well, I want people to like this character, will then say, so this character should not support the realm. I don't believe that this is the correct way to go, which means that I also want to leave stuff in here because we also want to give players the opportunity to change and manipulate NPCs. Remember that Exalted is a game that's more than just about being able to crush somebody using your martial prowess or your tactical strategy. It's also about being able to shape the world through hearts and minds. And if we create characters, some characters may be completely irredeemable. Some characters may have focused so much on things that are antithetical to the PCs that they can't be convinced this way. But we do necessarily want to have the ability to have some of these characters maybe be able to change minds and bring people along. So if audience members are creating characters, you have a principal image of the thing. Yes, that's true. Absolutely. So we're going to keep this in here, but this person could potentially be swayed away from feeling this way about the realm or the Immaculate Faith if the PCs want that to happen, or if outside elements make that something that we need to focus on in the future. Rules are for students. They're not necessarily for me, I think is going to be a major principle. So this is important because we want somebody to, we want this character to feel like rules are important for those who she's looking after. In other words, my rules are important, but that she isn't necessarily somebody who needs to be bound by rules herself. Which might mean that she will take some actions which could be considered controversial. And this is a way that we can potentially have characters come into conflict because we see here that she is potentially going to be strict with her students, but maybe not for the right reasons. So that's a principle that I like throwing in there for this character, just in a way to sort of shape what she will help out and believe. It's easy to focus on how the realm can be an oppressive force, but forget that it also safeguards a lot of creation from supernatural threats. So this is something that I think a lot of people need to acknowledge when it comes to things, is that morality, depending on the tone of your game, can be black and white, or it can be a lot of shades of gray. The best example that I can throw out off the top of my head is Star Wars. Star Wars is a series in which we are supposed to sympathize with the Galactic Federation, or later on the Rebel Alliance. The idea is that, or the New Republic then afterwards, the idea that they are on the side of good, even though they may not be totally good. They're generally considered to be better than dealing with the Empire. Except that it isn't as simple as all that necessarily. You can make a very good case for saying that a small group of terrorists decided to blow up a space station with thousands of people on board for their own political agenda. And that would be an appropriate way to describe what happened in Star Wars. So we don't necessarily want that, though, for Star Wars. So in some ways, we want to be able to just like be thrilled and cheer for the heroes and thumbs down for the bad guys, and that's what we want. This isn't the kind of game that I'm interested in running for House of Bells. I don't want to make a judgment call as to whether the realm is correct or wrong. I want the players to do so. I want to create scenarios, and I want to create situations where players are going to have to start deciding how their characters feel, and then choose sides, possibly have their sides change, to have them constantly evaluate what's going on. I find that morality is going to be more interesting, especially considering that we have students for PCs. These are people who are still being molded. And I don't know about you, but when you hit high school, the first parts of college or university, this is when you are very susceptible to being molded by somebody charismatic. A teacher who manages to reach you in such a way could be instrumental in shaping your viewpoints going forward. I can't count how many times I've come across somebody who takes one class of one thing and then instantly assumes that that makes them an expert, and therefore they know the ins and outs of the ethics of a situation. I've taken one philosophy class and now I subscribe to Marxism. I've taken one safety class and now I think I know what it takes to keep people safe on the job. Hey, thank you, Walter. That's very kind. Pun expected. Carl Yeager and Miras Firefluffer will very much appreciate that. And emotes for everybody. I got the snacking emote. Why not, right? Like, go for it. Psych Major, by the way. Well, Pugajutsu, you're in this photo, but you don't have to like it. Goobermensch says, notable that in a game as opposed to a movie or a novel, there's the default pressure that PCs are morally justifiable since the players control them and have to live with their choices. So that's very true, Grubermensch, and this is something that we have to highlight. Remember that the players are the protagonists, so their beliefs become the default beliefs, not necessarily the correct ones, but the default ones. And games are often structured in such a way that the players want to feel like they can take their beliefs and mold the universe around them. If everybody believes what the player characters believe, then there's a lot less of an incentive for them to do anything. Why go out and right wrongs or have adventures if everybody else just feels the exact same way you do? It's why stereotypes exist in games, and why stereotypes can often be handy, because it gives players the chance to act against stereotypes. What do you mean that everybody hates the Solar Exalted? Well, this might be a situation in which the players have the ability to say, no, we're going to make everybody love the Solar Exalted so that they feel that they made a change in the universe itself. It could easily be the opposite. They might decide that anathema are anathema for a reason. They need to be taken down. But the point is that it's the players who figure that out. Aragorn says, I think the realm in general is a lot easier to get behind. Setting aside certain trade activities that I personally choose to exclude from the world when I play the game, the realm isn't obviously the baddies from a 100-foot view. So that's true. Sexuality, for example, somewhere where the realm has a lot of progressive attitudes from a Western viewpoint. Absolutely. So it is something to be said. And remember that people tend to make choices based on past experience. If the realm has decided to kill every Solar Exalted they encounter, this is because in the past, the Solar Exalted made life for the realm miserable. Is it fair to punish people for the sins of what happened in the first stage? That's a good question. And it's a question for the players to figure out for themselves. And it is a question for the storyteller to present in such a way that it is an interesting question to confront, if that's the kind of game you want to run. So there is that that's important to note as well. I should open featured because we do have that, and it is nice to be able to throw these things up on the screen for when they become important. So let's go into the dashboard and then we can highlight these things. Kung Fu Fenrir is grain of salt because I'm sick. I mean, obviously, it is important. Whoops, I've opened the wrong thing here. Let's get featured not for my channel, but for RPGClinic in here, because that's what I meant. And I do want to make sure that I do what I meant. So Kung Fu Fenris says, grain of salt because I'm sick. The realm as a system is inherently vile and repulsive. It's a system formed and shaped around a single person's force of arms. It is not meant to endure beyond her lifetime, and she's allowed leeches to grow fat and docile on her agenda. So also a very legitimate viewpoint. I think that that's completely acceptable as a way to look at it. I just want to say that for me, the interesting thing is not to make a stand as to what is correct and what isn't. I want the players to do so. And I want them to do so based on their experience in the game. So I will give them different experiences and let them come to their own conclusions. Aragorn's point is quite valid here. So you're saying the world used to be even more massive, except for peeps running around as baby nukes, and now 300 baby nukes are back, and shouldn't we be doing something about that? Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways that we can look at it, right? So that's just a thing for us to just keep in mind, right? While we're doing this. So that doesn't even go here. So let's get back to Juin here. We don't have a portrait, so we don't need to worry about that. And I'm less focused on her stats right now. So let's go in here and let's make sure that we've defined this character the way that we want. One thing that we should do is we should have a look. Whoops. We should have a look at what examples we have. So we have history and we have currently right now. Now, this isn't necessarily what we're going to keep, but we also have kind of a log line here. So we should probably make sure that we have, oh, we can't edit the title right now. Haha, that's a thing. We also don't have house here, which we would probably want to make sure that we have house in the info boxes as well. Nella Shuin as barracks overseer is responsible for the students' well-being outside of classrooms. She and the battlefield. She is she considers it her first duty to ensure that students grow to be good people first and foremost. So we'll leave that for there. Hey, T36. As opposed to being in their title, you can hit the gear symbol to change the gear. Okay, so yeah, let's do that. So let's throw that out there. Oh, that didn't seem to make that change, but it's possible that we just have to... I mean, I'm still learning this myself, right? Thinking about you. Aw, very cute. Hey, the game mommy. You shall graduate as upstanding citizens, or you shall die. Well, maybe not quite that. Happy holidays to everybody here. Thanks again, Aragorn. That's really kind. So... let's make sure, I mean, yeah, as I learn how to do this properly. So we don't necessarily know anything about our history right now, but we definitely want to put a physical description. Why do we want to put a physical description? I will say this. If you put a physical description, it means that A, your audience is more likely to create fan art about this character, and B, it is useful because you create the sort of atmosphere that you want the players to have. One thing that we definitely want to make sure of, though, is we want to leave some things out. And the reason why is because you want people to give the chance to put their own spin on the game. If I started writing 600 words to describe Juin here, that's not necessarily going to encourage somebody. Now, it might, but sometimes people want to be able to add stuff that they want to see reflected in the game. So, we already know that... whoops. We already know that Juin is a wood aspect, and if we go into what fire has wrought, if we look at the separate aspects, and we look at aspect markings, wood aspects tend toward a greenish tinge to their skin, hair, lips, or even blood, and often have green eyes. They may smell of flowers, pine, fresh fruit, or other plants. Some have leaves or flowers growing in their hair, or even grow a light layer of bark on their skin, typically along the back and shoulders. So, one of the things that we are definitely not going to do is we are not going to create a poison ivy XP. Fan art atmosphere stopped me from saying there's a guy there. He's old. Introducing somebody. So we're not going to create a poison ivy XP because that's... Oh, did I just mess up Aragorn? Was she supposed to have just... See, I feel like now I can't do anything correct. I'm not picking the right house. I'm not picking the right appearances. The reason why we don't necessarily want to create a Poison Ivy XP is because I also do not want to make my players have assumptions of what she's going to be like by taking her appearance and then thinking about how they pattern Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy is a character that's already well-defined and already has, well-defined, depending on who's writing her. But it is a character that already exists. I don't mind having inspiration being drawn from a character, but if you start drawing inspirations from somebody's physical appearance, you risk having them pattern everything else alongside it. So, I'm shocked and instantly forget again. Yeah, it doesn't feel like Christmas Eve to me, especially because it's 7 degrees outside. I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm not even in Austin. Like, what's going on here? All right. So, one thing that we did kind of come out here is the idea of having lime green hair, which instantly means that she isn't Poison Ivy, because Poison Ivy quite famously has red hair. So, we'll bother to write this a little bit better later on, but for hair, let's go with lime green. Why not? And then let's even go so let's even go that. Now, I know it seems a bit weird to just write like scent, the hint of citrus, but it is something that we are going to mention when we kind of transfer this over to prose. I like the idea of lime, right? That Kung Fu Fenris has suggested, so we can have that in her hair, but also to have sort of a fresh scent sort of follow her as well. Now, one of the things that's important about Exalted is that appearance does not necessarily denote your effectiveness. It was said in an earlier edition of Exalted that the reason that they don't have stats for helmets is because nobody should need to have to wear a helmet if they don't want to. They wanted people to just be able to be badass wandering around without a helmet on. And that has stayed true for the most part for the rest of Exalted. It's very rare that you'll see somebody wear a helmet in art, and when you do, it's a specific choice. And that kind of goes also for things like hairstyles. Obviously, if you have hair that's all the way down to your toes, that's probably not the most convenient for somebody who is supposed to be a battle-hardened warrior. But in Exalted, it matters a lot less. So instead, we're going to make sure that she has... now, we want to also not make sure that we're leaning into stereotypes that will... unless you braid blades into it and weaponize it. I mean, yes, Aragorn, that is absolutely something that you can do, and that would be totally badass, especially if they were artifact blades. You can have artifact hair. Mistrich suggested a short pixie cut. So this is what a short pixie cut would look like, right? If we see this here. And right now, I feel like this gives us a good impression of somebody who is, you know, not necessarily completely obsessed with appearing straight up military, but also has a certain amount of practicality to them. And practicality is something that we like to imply for this character here. So let's do that. Let's throw that in there. Now, one of the things that I also want to do is make sure that despite the fact that this is a military academy, that I do want to lend a certain air of academia to this, because there is still academics to it. And despite the fact that she isn't necessarily somebody who teaches in an academic style, we are going to give her spectacles. It is important to note that glasses aren't the sort of thing that... can she be tall as fuck, like 6'3"? Yes, she can. Tall. We're going to put her at, I mean, 6'3" in centimeters is about 190. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll make her 6'3". So we're going to give her spectacles. I don't think she necessarily needs these to see all that well. I think she wears them as an affectation. I'm also going to point out that before people start saying like, but glasses, like that's modern. No, they're not. They're really not. in the history of them, use of an emerald by Emperor Nero is mentioned by Pliny the Elder. So, you know, it's happened 10th century, right? So this is something that we can absolutely hold on to. They can and do exist. So I don't think she necessarily needs them that much, but I think she wears them because she wants to. Yes, but they also have mecha. Yeah. I mentioned this because I see people say that glasses aren't appropriate for a Dungeons and Dragons universe, and they absolutely fucking are. And also, we do what we want. Elizabeth is correct, as she often is. Her skin, I think we're going to go for I think we're going to give her olive skin. Like an actual olive as a skin color. Because she does have some green tone to it. And it'll set her hair off, right? Her hair is lime green as opposed to her skin. So let's throw that in there. Olive skin. I was suddenly remembered of Gokuzen, where Yakuza's boss's granddaughter decides to teach high school and her teacher disguises pigtails and glasses, but when she has to Yakuza out on baddies, she whips her glasses to the side and let her hair loose, and now will be unable to visualize doing anything else. I mean, the thing is, we are definitely going to have an artifact hair at some point in this. We're going to do that, but I don't think it's appropriate for this character right now. Hey, Rock Pants. I want to specify olive green. Yeah, sorry. That is true. So we'll do that. Now, what does she wear? I think she clothing. I think she always wears a high-necked buff jacket. I think that kind of lends itself off to that sort of putting a barrier between her and her students, that she covers herself up properly using armor, but not armor that implies that she's weak. It's just like the base sort of, yes, I am wearing something that is military, but I am also necessarily making sure that people understand that I am not overly concerned about my protection here. Gail would like to apply to be her best friend. And weapon. So, one thing I will point out is that I don't want everybody in this entire chronicle to be carrying artifact weapons at all times, specifically the students. I think that artifact weapons are the sort of things that are meant to be... I mean, if there's anybody who has access to a lot of them, it would be the realm. But it is something that I don't want for just everybody to have. And that's interesting. Let me just send a quick message off, because somebody has signed in to my Netflix account, and I don't know why. All right. Gucci is Jesus Snuggled. So we do need to figure out a weapon. See? I have a new sign-in on my account. You can actually... oh, no, you couldn't see that because that was an overlay. Let me ask you a question. So if we go straight up into the book itself and we look at artifact weapons... I think... I think we might go with a Dire Lash. So that's not quite a Dire Lash, kind of, maybe. But she is a disciplinarian, and there is a certain focus on whips as a discipline item. But is that going too far? So we have to think about that for a second. Let's look at the description for a Dire Lash. This braided cord of rare leathers and hair-fine wires of the magical materials can slash through flesh and steel. Immaculately responsive to its wielder's motions, these artifact whips can disarm, entangle, and injure with equal ease. Getting some Quistis energy here. Possibly, I haven't actually played much of any Final Fantasy VIII. Kind of a whip, not like a fake eyelash to go with those braids from earlier. I mean, just like you could lean your head close and just have somebody's eyelashes just close on somebody and slice them to ribbons. Interesting. Because I like the idea that she carries a light weapon around, and a Dire Lash is a light weapon. And I don't really know if I want her to be carrying things like a Smash Fist. Also, Dire Lash because it's a whip, fits a little bit well with a wood aspect. Don't make me inflict 10,000 butterfly kisses on you. Oh, this game could end up being quite cool. So we're going to say that, yeah, she carries a Dire Lash. We should give this Dire Lash a name, because good artifact weapons have names. And we'll say that this Dire Lash is called... Future Sting, and we're gonna just go for straight up Jade for its material. Butterfly's Kiss. So Kung Fu Fenris, I think that that's something that I would absolutely use for something else, but this is not a Butterfly's Kiss sort of thing. Yeah, it'll be Green Jade. It looks like she's so this looks like a pretty good character right off the bat for what I'm looking for. And now I could keep going with this, but I did want to make sure that I created 2 characters in this session, and I only have 45 minutes left. So, because I wanted to get 1 professor out and 1 student. So let's have a quick overview to see what we've got here. We already know that we have her house. We have her role, although this will probably be better emphasized when we continue creating the character, and as we start playing, we'll get a better idea about this. Yeah, grumble about Orange Jade into the sunset. You do that. We have a physical description here. Now, if we go back to our character, we can close those tabs. Not that you can see them up there. If we go into her character, we can tell that she is currently not overwhelming any of the other PCs in their favored attributes, which is kind of what we want right now, unless we wanted to create a rival. Better image for a Dire Lash. Let's have a look. Yes, that is a better image for a Dire Lash. Absolutely. So let's look at the intimacies. You cannot exceed your limitations without being pushed beyond them. The safety of the realm depends on the graduates of the House of Bells. Rules are for students. They're not necessarily for me. And then she considers House of Bells home. She considers her guardianship of the students her defining intimacy. She tolerates her house. She's loyal to the realm, and she's devoted to the Immaculate Faith, but only minor for all 3 of those. So I think that'll help. If this was a movie, I'd expect an Orange Jade bauble in the background on someone's desk at some point, but never discussed. Maybe. maybe. So I'm also doing this very step by step. This doesn't have to take as long as all this. And of course, I'm doing it in front of people and I'm describing as I'm going, because I tend not to want to spend too much time on preparing these sorts of things, because my GM style is very closer to improvisational. I want to be able to think on my feet, which is also why when I create these things, I don't necessarily have to abide by what I've written down here. But there we go. So we've got that character in here. We won't worry about filling out these stats. We'll do that later on. We'll save this here. Oh, it already did. Okay, so it did update here, but we're also going to add these categories. So we're going to add EXA NPC and EXA professor. And if we add these categories, this is very important for dealing with the wiki. It then means that if we go back to the character descriptions, so I did put this in here. Wiki caching is slow. Okay, so this might take a little bit of time to update, but it should file itself under professors here, so we'll be able to see it. It takes a minute. Shouting. So that's so that's what we have for our that's what we've got for our first character. Now let's create a student. So we're gonna go here to the add new page. We'll need a title. We'll also go, whoops, get back here. We'll also go here, go back to quick characters. Testy we can delete because we no longer need Testy around. Interesting. And we'll create a new quick character here. So now we want a student. Let's create a student that is meant to be a rival. So a rival would be an antagonist, but not necessarily a villain. If you go back to our previous talk about villains and antagonists, you'll know what I mean. But remember that antagonists are people who act against the NPCs, at least initially, but not necessarily that they act morally against the players and their sensibilities. It's more indicative of their position towards the player characters. So one thing that we definitely want to do, though, is we want to make sure that we pick the right house for this, for somebody who is going to be a rival. Now, we have a couple of options. We could choose Cathak because two of our characters are Cathak, and that is that would provide for an interesting rival because there would be sort of like competition inside the house. But because this is the first rival that we're creating, and I want to make sure that it's a rival for all of them, we're going to make this the sort of person who you're just like, smarmy, the person that you love to hate. And that means that we also want to make sure that we pick a house that's going to make people feel badly. And Aragorn actually guessed this time around that we were going to pick House Rhaegar. Rhaegar. So Rhaegar owns a piece of every other house. They basically have all the money. And they're also kind of like, they have some stuff which is not great about Rhaegar as well. There's a lot that you can hate when it comes to House Rhaegar as a house. So it is something that we can kind of hold on to. There's a lot to love. But regardless, what we're going to do, and we're going to make this person a... so we're going to make this person... Whoops, I just... Oh, no, that's not what you're looking at. You're not looking at the PDFs. I'm looking at the PDF. So it's fine. You didn't do it. I did it. So we're going to need a name. So Regara, and let's... Brevin. So boom. Regard Brevin. We're in. I'm in. So let's go first to edit the character. Essence 1. We want this character to be a rival. I do not want this character to be obviously, you know, that much more powerful than the PCs, but I do want to make sure that they have an ability to, regard Iago. We're gonna have to, because this is a rival, I want the players to not like this character, but I also want them to be able to win over this character occasionally. So I can't make them too powerful, but I have to make them powerful enough to make a difference. So we're going to... Brevin is a... We're going to do that because then we're going to insert our info box. And this is going to be an ExalTwitch Academy character. Appearance. Now, here's the thing. As a rival, it would be appropriate to make sure that this character had at least one thing that they were very good at that sort of matches the player characters, so that it's something that they can see as sort of a challenge to them. So Brevin is going to have an appearance of 4. Not 5. I don't want to go all the way up, but an appearance of 4 I think will work well for us right now. As for aspect, which I see has just been added to the info box, as for aspect, Regara is known for being associated with the aspect of Earth, but I do not want the aspect to match the player characters. And Aresta is Earth. So that leaves us with wood and water as the two that are not currently associated. We've just created a wood, so let's make the Brevin a water aspect Dragon-Blood. No one's hotter than Pyres. If we join the headcanon Lotcast, who is able to see our hidden intimacies, I'm not actually sure who can see hidden intimacies, because if you joined that as a campaign that exists, then the person who can see hidden intimacies would be Aragorn. I will point out, and I'm not going to say how, but there is an exploit that you can use to see somebody else's hidden intimacies if you can see their character sheet. So just be aware. Don't put something on as a hidden thing in your sheet if you are absolutely hoping that no one else will ever see it. I will say that I don't see it. If you want me to be able to see it, that's something else entirely. But for the headcanon characters, I am not the storyteller. You said it in Discord because someone asked. That's fine. It's not like a bad thing for it to be out there. I just don't want to necessarily just scream it out on stream. So occupation, student. Normally in occupation, I would say like what year of student they are, but I'm not going to start figuring that out right now. Pronouns, Brevin is going to be he, him. So one thing that I will point out is that there will be characters who have male pronouns, characters who have female pronouns, characters who have pronouns that are they, them. But one thing that I will point out is that while I'm trying to create a diverse world, I definitely do not want to imply that somebody who is who is part of a minority, you want to make sure that you've created a couple of characters, because what you don't want is for the first sort of antagonist character to have a minority aspect to them, because then you risk kind of just associating that minority aspect to there. If you've created like 10 villains and one of them uses they them pronouns, that's fine. But if you have one villain and they have they them pronouns, it's a bit harder to sort of dodge that issue. It's a thorny question. Don't worry, there will be a lot of ways for us to examine this, but for now, on our first sort of like antagonist character, we're gonna stick with he him for this. Prefect, not sure yet, we'll see. So we've got regard Brevin NPC. Perfect. That's what we want for now. Let's go back into stats. So description, water aspect. We're going to say potentially, no, we're not going to say potentially. We are going to say that if we want this person to be a rival, this person has to be leader of the X Fang. So it's another Fang. Gale would like to be Brevin's best friend. Gale needs an army though. So we're going to say that this is a leader, somebody who is got a lot of charisma, charisma or manipulation, specifically somebody who can be the leader of a thing. But maybe because we already have somebody who is very high in charisma, so if we go here, if we go back into here, we can see that Aresta has, you know, decent social stats. Pyres has very high charisma, and Gale has very high manipulation. So if I make this person very high charisma or very high manipulation, I risk, you know, targeting one character. And I don't want this to be a rival for one character. I want them to be a rival to all three. So instead, we're going to choose something that none of them have made a lot of inroads into, and we'll have that be their special thing. I think we're looking at perception, because Aresta's strength and stamina, Pyres is charisma and appearance, and Gale is intelligence, dexterity, manipulation, and appearance. So I could make this person incredibly dexterous, because also Gale isn't focused as much on combat as some of the others, at least in my impression. But she does have fast reflexes, right? So we don't necessarily want to challenge her there. So perception might be where we give that sort of max stuff here. So let's make sure, where are we here? There we go. So let's make sure that for senses, we're just gonna put senses at high right now. I'm not gonna figure out the stats right away, because I'm gonna do that kind of like in an overall pass, but we're just gonna make sure that we put senses up here. Not huge on strength. We'll put the strength at 3. And then let's have a look over here. We definitely want this person to be somebody who, we've already selected an appearance of 4 here. We definitely want this person to potentially be average socially, because we still want the ability for this person to get, we want to have somebody who the players can win over, not win over to their side. I mean, to succeed over. Appearance in the wikis for describing. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. We're just going to leave that for now, and we'll fix it later. So let's cover that. So, principles and ties. Path to glory. Keep that at 1. Now, we could choose to make this character a straight up stereotype. To have this person be like completely unlikable, arrogant, brash, crude, or we can have this character have some intimacies that are a little more sort of quote unquote natural, things that you could kind of expect them to have. So we already have House of Bells' path to glory, right? This is somebody who believes that the House of Bells is just one step on there to becoming someone important. If I lead, I win. Now we can make this a major aura defining, but it's something that we can kind of use as a baseline. This person really likes to be in charge. So, hey, Super Dylan. Sorry that I didn't see that earlier. So, if I lead, I win. I kind of like for this. This is us to imply that Brevin really puts a lot of focus on being on top. Been lurking while working. Hopefully today is your last day. Hopefully you do not have to work tomorrow. Make him a drum major. I don't want to... I've already said that this character is an antagonist. I want to antagonize drum majors. They'll come after you. Let's see. Let's also add the realm and the Immaculate Faith. I think this character, because I want them to be an antagonist, and I've already stated that, I don't want to make it obvious one way or the other in terms of their feelings of the realm of the Immaculate Faith, because I don't want to imply that this is where I'm trying to lead the characters. So I'm going to make them relatively not as important. So the realm... the realm is all I've ever known. It's all I need to know. So I think that Brevin isn't actually interested in leaving past or beyond the realm. Hey, Saren Zero. Thanks for the follow. Here, you know what? We can... ExalTwitch is my new favorite Christmas movie. There you go. So I think that Brevin isn't actually interested in going out to conquer other people. I don't think that Brevin is even all that interested in traveling to other places. Brevin's a bit more closed-minded. Brevin just believes that what's important is for him to stay within the cozy embrace of the realm and to just excel and lead there. So I think that that's a great way for us to emphasize that this character is a bit more closed, and closed tends to be better for antagonists because players like to feel like they are more open, that they are more enlightened than antagonist characters. Not necessarily needing to force them into being like, you have to go elsewhere, or you have to accept things that are outside the realm. But in a way, this is just a way for us to imply that Brevin is a bit more closed-minded without specifically putting that in as a principle. As long as he's not clothed. We could add a tie for clothes. Disdain for clothes. Why? Keyboard. Anyway. So let's see what else we can do. We need a defining intimacy. I think maybe we're going to change if I lead, I win to defining. I think that that's his focus, and that sort of focus and possibly even desperation to be in charge might be a good thing for us to see in an antagonist, because then that's the kind of thing that you eventually have to knock them down from. It's not a pleasant thing in a person to see that kind of desperation to be on top, to be in charge. I'm not making their rival a nudist. I am not. We also should make sure that we have something that might be at least a little bit redeemable for them. So I would say I don't show compassion often, but when I do, I make it count. Watercolors defining intimacy. We can give a hobby. I think a hobby is a good idea for Ty. So I do want to make sure that this this character is somebody who wants to lead, but isn't necessarily a bad leader. And I think that compassion is something that can be useful for leaders. I think that Brevin understands that showing compassion all the time doesn't necessarily make for the best kind of leader, especially in a military context, but that it is important every once in a while. So we have that here. Maybe he has a lover, but he's not arranged to marry them. Don't want to put in lovers just yet because I don't want to close off that avenue. If one of the PCs wants to try to romance a character, I think that's okay. I'm also going to point out that in this particular situation, the characters are old enough that they can make their own decisions. They are definitely at the age of sexual maturity, so we don't have to worry about that. But like, I don't want to close that off. I don't even necessarily want to close off if characters want to try to pair themselves off with whoever. The only thing that I won't do is initiate a relationship from a professor to a student. I'm not necessarily going to stop it if they want to investigate what it's like to fall for a teacher or a professor. That's because also remember that Dragon-Blooded have a bit of a different sort of situation here. But quite recently, especially here in our arts community here in Montreal, there's been a lot of focus right now on inappropriate student-teacher relationships. And I don't want to make that a focus of the game. Unless players want to investigate it themselves, in which case I'd rather that be more fraught with the idea of it being a perhaps a taboo relationship rather than an abusive one. I don't really want to get into abusive relationships when it comes to romance in this game. Not right now, especially not in a school setting based on what we've experienced. We'll probably discuss it in session 0. I would be curious about a principle of loyalty should be rewarded. That's an interesting one. I kind of like that, so we'll throw that in there. We need a major, and we also need to make sure that we have at least one negative thing. We should also check that for Juin as well. So we're going to say that this person really doesn't like academics. This person wants to be out on the field. This person wants to be engaged in activity as opposed to studying. So we're gonna put that there, but we're only gonna keep it at a 1. It doesn't need to be so defining as all that. I think that we can make this a major. Rivals for life. So that's also something. We know that we have an academic in the group. We have Gale, so this puts them against Gale. Now, how can we also potentially put them against Aresta and against Pyres? Because that would be an interesting thing for that as well. Yeah. The students in this game will not be minors. We will not be interacting with the younger part of the secondary school. We're just not. They're just not going to come into play unless they are specifically coming into play as like, look, you're passing by a bunch of the first years as they're going in. They will not be romanceable, and it just will not be introduced. Anybody who is romanceable, anybody who is sexually available, they will all be of an age where that is appropriate. We're not going to define specifically ages to that point. It's just, I don't want to have to start saying, oh yeah, this person's X, especially because the age at which somebody reaches sexual maturity kind of varies across different cultures and beliefs. And there's also a legality issue that comes with it. For instance, sexual content involving people under the age of 18 is looked down upon a bit more on Twitch, despite the fact that it is perfectly legal in a lot of places, including where I live, where the age of consent is 16, and there are Romeo and Juliet laws that allow you to be sexually active under that age as well, as long as there's somebody who is close to you in age and who does not hold a position of superiority over you, such as teacher, coach, mentor, or the like. So it's just something, I don't want to start getting into the idea of like age being a thing, especially because for the society that we're living in, you stay at the appearance of a certain age for a very, very long time if you're exalted. So anyway, maybe sees arrest and Pirates as the real strength of the party's wing. He denies that Gale is the reason for success in the group and targets are trying to poach them. Possibly Mr. Rich, but remember that they're not even a group yet. They become a group at the beginning of the game. So I'll make that determination when that happens, but it's an interesting idea to hold on to. I know. Oh, you're using Fedora Linux. Yeah. So let's make sure that we have at least a couple of things that we can use to put them against Aresta and Pyres. So let's call up those folk. So let's start with Pyres because they happen to be close to where I was. One thing that we can do is that both of those characters are House Cathak. So we can, in fact, put disdain for House Cathak and cover both of them. So this is sort of like the beginning of it. I don't actually want to define this character further than this. This is already pretty well defined, but I don't want to go further because I want the chance for the character to be organic and to grow organically in the context of play. So already doesn't really like House Cathak, definitely doesn't like academics, puts counter to all three of our PCs. What's the carrot? Why don't the PCs just ignore this person? This person is a leader and will lead a rival Fang. So we already know what the carrot is. They're going to have to deal with this person one way or the other. And then any further carrots we'll have to determine as we go forward when we see what's important for the player characters, because we don't actually know. And as much as we have their intimacies that they filled out already, none of these things I put as much stock in until I see them reflected in play. They're still important, and let's listen to them and let's make sure that we understand them and we take them into account. But they aren't truly real until I see it happen. So if we go in here, we're also going to need a description here. So we're going to go for a heading. So water, if we look at the water aspect and we look at water aspect markings, water aspects tend toward a slight blue-green tint to their skin, sometimes a deep green-black or ebony in those of refined pedigrees. They can smell of fresh running water, salty ocean spray, or the earth after rainfall. Some are marked by watery eyes or perpetually damp hair. Their clothing might billow as though soaked in water, and their presence can lead surfaces covered in condensation. We're definitely not going to go for somebody, again, for somebody that we've defined as a rival. We're not going to immediately play into a minority here, so we're not going to have ebony skin here for the rival because it's the first rival we've created. So we're going to go for blue-green tint. Roberqual says, Sean already knows this as we've seen in previous games he's run, but as this is RPGClinic, a bit of general advice for people running games: be very careful about making NPCs that the PCs don't want to interact with, but will be forced to. If you don't play it right, your players will not have a good time. This is absolutely correct. If you force somebody to interact with somebody, then you are making a choice for the players. You are railroading them. And while a certain amount of railroading is inevitable and even sometimes advisable, if a character is somebody who they absolutely just hate dealing with, not love to hate, but hate dealing with, and you're forcing it, then you're going to reduce their enjoyment of the game. So that is an important part to keep in mind. Aragorn wants their hair to be ice blue and long. Now, I really like the idea of the artifact of blades in hair, but I don't think that I want that for a student. I think I would prefer that for somebody who's a bit more established. So we're not going to give Brevin this artifact, but I don't have a problem with hair being ice blue. And we're going to make it down to his hips. You don't mean that long? You would prefer that it just stays over around shoulder length, mid-back, between the shoulder blades? I mean weapon long. No, his weapon is not going to be hair. Hair is too interesting a weapon for a student, I think, to be trusted with it. Okay, let's have a look at this person. Okay, but that's pretty long hair. That's hair that could potentially be going down to his hips. So I think that's okay. I think we'll keep that for there. Oh no, he's hot. Oh yeah, no, Brevin is hot. Brevin has appearance 4. Oh wow. I just got an email from Nintendo thanking me for playing Breath of the Wild. I think because it realizes now that I beat the game. Which is kind of embarrassing. I've had it for the longest time and I only just beat it yesterday, and now it's being like, oh, thank you for playing it. Like, all right. At least I'm not a scrub. So, hair, ice blue down to his hips. Favored weapon. Now, again, a rival. So, we want to make sure that this is a weapon that is not necessarily reflected in the other characters. This guy's perception is high, right? So we're going to make him an archer. I'm not going to go beyond that. I don't know whether he's carrying an artifact weapon. He probably has to. But yeah, we're going to make him an archer. Let's see. What else do we need to do? We're also going to want clothing. I'm going to say that he dresses in so he favors dressing with no armor, is fond of his prized kimono. Oh my god, I want him ought have the most ridiculously huge siege weapon-sized bow. An essence cannon. He yeets archers at people. Yeah, he just puts archers in his bow and he fires them up and then they fire down. That's something that we could potentially do. But so we've also put this in here, and something that we've realized now about Rigara is I think this is something that we can add in here. Those who wear armor are asking to be struck. So he does not like armor specifically. Sounds Dreaming Pearl courtesan to me. That is the fighting with hair ornament style. Yeah, I don't think he's a Dreaming Pearl. Not just yet. I don't think we're quite at that point. So the leader of of Fang. We don't have much more information than that specifically. But this is starting to become more of an idea of a character that we have here. We know Archer, blue-green tint, hair, ice blue down to his hips. Let's give him an identifier. Dear whoever, this dude ruined my third breastplate this month. What a douche. Let's give him an identifier, something that we can absolutely kind of focus on. And so we're going to say that he... He wears a simple chain of linked jade around his wrist. We don't know what that's for yet. It might end up being an artifact. Not sure. We'll look into it. But just giving tiny accents like this can often be useful for what we're looking at. So this is the initial character creation done during clinic hours. Fang name idea because water aspect and the pretty factor, something to do with pearls, maybe spiral pearls. So pearls, I want to avoid the connection with Dreaming Pearl Courtesan. So the orange jade MacGuffin. But I do like the idea of incorporating that. So we're gonna call this the coral spiral. So we're gonna do that for now. We might, because I really like the idea of incorporating spiral in there, and coral spiral might work. So let's throw that in there. I mean, obviously we don't want to lean so heavy. We don't want to define somebody like, well, they're a wood aspect, so and then that's all we need to worry about. Same with water, same with fire or air or wood. But it doesn't hurt at the beginning of a game to lean a little bit into it, to help people, bring people into the world, to help them understand, kind of thing. It's sort of like how, as much as I'm here, we'll talk Harry Potter, because it's another property that deals very much in terms of schooling. I'll throw out there, screw J.K. Rowling anyway. But like when you start, you don't put like a whole lot of sympathetic characters into Slytherin right away, because you want to associate Slytherin with a certain kind of person, and then you put sympathetic Slytherin later on, once you've kind of established it properly. So we're in the same thing here. What about Coral Helix or Coral Gyre? Ah, Gyre. You're going to name your student army after elemental stuff, just because Spiral is the name of another secondary school. So you make a very good point. We don't want to necessarily do that. So we're going to take inspiration from what Bistrich said, but we're not necessarily going to keep it. I do like Helix, so we'll throw that in there. Dear whoever, here's your monthly stipend for ruining Yomi's armor. They've asked me to design something new. Fair enough. So we've already got some good stuff here. So we're gonna save that, and we're also gonna make sure that when we're gonna add these categories, remember that this is important. So EXA is the prefix for ExalTwitch Academy. This is an NPC, and this is a student. And we'll save. So definitely still need to worry about have I screwed something up here? Maybe I haven't. I seem to have screwed something up here. So ice blue hair, blue green skin, loves a fancy kimono. We'll just throw that in there. Huh. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to figure that out, why that's not saving properly. We're just showing how things are, we're just gonna have to, oh, you're trying to fix things. Okay, so we'll have to just leave that while Kate's sorting that out. But it is much more forgiving, this wiki format, and once we've got it set up just the way that we want, then we'll be able to then anybody can contribute as long as you feel like you have stuff to throw in there. So what have we looked at here? We have looked at the idea of creating NPCs, and while I've taken a lot of time to do this, more time than I would normally, we're looking at some thought processes. Here, we'll save this as well. This is publicly viewable. I'm fine with that. Where's my save here? Or do I not need to? Oh, done. There it is. So what have we looked at? So we've looked at the idea that we want to create characters that complement the PCs in terms of not overwhelming them right away. Overwhelming them is a specific deliberate choice that you want to make only when it's appropriate, as opposed to just being like, yeah, I feel like I want to create a character that's, just happens to also be as good as what this PC is, only does it better. Do not overshadow a PC without good reason. The second is that we also want to make sure that when we create an antagonist, we don't necessarily want to create an antagonist that we don't want to interact with. We want to create an antagonist that is still interesting for players. We want to love to dislike, or love to hate, or love to shake our fist at. We don't want somebody who you're just like, ugh, not this person again, and you don't want to deal with them. Because remember, if you create a character like that, and that's the response that you're getting from players, they don't ever have to show up again. That's fine. That info box template got deleted. I fixed it for everyone else. Okay, that's cool. Tide is an awesome example of this. So, Exquisite Tide, it's best we hate the rival, but also want to kiss the rival. I mean, a lot of the best rivals are that way. Exquisite Tide was somebody who, you want people to be like, oh no, when this person shows up. But one of the things that I actually was most surprised at was that there ended up being a face turn for some of these characters that I created. And for people who are created as rivals or straight up antagonists, sometimes they can end up being allies. It all depends on what the characters do. What were their pronouns? Brevin is he, him. So we also created a professor. We created a professor who is meant to be a bit more neutral right at the start. Somebody who is definitely in a position of authority, because we want to be able to guide the players, but we've given enough of leeway so that we can have players act around this character if need be. You don't want to oppress the characters too much right at the beginning, because that's going to be an issue. We also have not spent so much time on these characters that we'll be insulted if we have to change them. Much in the same way that any player character can change as soon as you start playing them, and in fact that's when you truly discover the nature of that character. We do not want to find ourselves in a situation where we have made so many decisions on NPCs that we've become too rigid. Hey Zesty. Hi. You're coming in right for the end. So that is a way for us to sort of look at what we've got going on here. What time is it? It's almost 2. So yeah. All right. Well, not perfect, but that's fine. Sorry, I was just figuring something else out. So at any rate, look, it is the holiday season. If you are celebrating Christmas, I hope that you have a wonderful one. If you are not celebrating Christmas, I still hope that you have a wonderful holiday for whatever it's worth. I don't believe there is going to be a stream tomorrow, but for all I know, there might be. The best place to check would be the Discord. And do not forget that this Sunday, we are off for RPG Clinic. We are not streaming this Sunday, exceptionally, but we'll take a week off a year. Why not? If you're working Christmas like you, Solidarity, you are loved. Absolutely. Completely. Yule is on the 24th here. So far, yeah, well, then awesome, Kung Fu Fenris. I'm glad that things are going out well for you. But yeah, I hope that you look forward to this game. it's not going to be this Sunday, but next Sunday will be session 0 for ExalTwitch Academy. We'll learn more about the player characters, more about what we're intending for the game, and then maybe we'll even get to see some play, perhaps some backstory information to help fill things in. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there, and frankly, just have a great holiday. I'll see you soon.